So, hi everyone. Welcome to another episode of Unpacking Possibility. I'm your host, Tracy Stein, as always. I'm so happy to be here with you. Today, my good friend and yours, Leslie McGuirk, is back. She's
Yay,
amazing.
thank
Hi,
you.
Leslie. And of course, you know Leslie because she is an author, an artist, a sought after speaker, and astrologer to the stars, literally. So, Leslie, without further ado, welcome.
Happy to be here during these crazy times.
Oh my God. The last time we spoke, you touched on election issues and the prevailing or predominant astrological influences of then candidates Trump and Biden. And now, of course, there's been a change, and we have Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. And so I don't know if you want to get right into that or if we should start by explaining. You do it so well, what astrology is for people who are maybe not quite as clear on it.
Yeah, let's start with that because then when I talk about what's going on with the election, maybe it will make more sense because I want people to understand that astrology is a very neutral thing and it is a science. People need to realize that astrology has been studied for thousands and thousands of years. And the whole thing with astrology is that it's an esoteric science, not a hard science. So, what that means is that it's based on the movements of all the planets and where they were in relationship to where you were born. And basically, the belief is that we're born with a pattern, and it's very similar to a piece of music. And what we want to do is look at it like music. Like there's a good way to play the music, and then there's a clunky way to play the music. So, as an astrologer, my job is to try to get it to the highest version possible. And we are not in the business, should not be in the business of fortune telling. However, we should be in the business of forecasting weather patterns so that we have a better understanding of how to navigate with whatever's going on. That's why it was important for me to tell people about COVID. I knew something was coming before it happened. And it just helps to know that we're not going crazy. I think astrology is one of the few things that can explain the insanity of what we're living through right now because the music of the spheres of those balls in space floating around are telling us right now that this is a very, very stressful time. It's as if we are a bunch of snakes on the ground and all of us collectively are having to shed our skins all at the same time, or inchworms or worms, caterpillars, that's the word, caterpillars crawling around, and then all of a sudden our eyeballs are melting, and then all of a sudden we turn into a butterfly. Like we're in the eye melting phase right now, and we're supposed to be in the eye melting phase. So I don't think anyone likes it. Right now, we've got 333 million Americans on edge, totally
Yes.
wired up. And it's because there's so much instability, both with the candidates and the weather. You just put layer on top of it. So I'm talking about not only the meteorological weather, like what just happened with the hurricanes. And I live in Florida for part of the year. And I was just telling you that the hurricane isn't what destroyed the area where I live. It was the tornadoes. And there were like hundreds of them. And this has never, ever happened. So collectively we're all wondering like what's next. Another friend of mine in North Carolina totally lost her house in Asheville, and
I'm
they
so
moved to the
sorry.
mountains to escape hurricanes, and they go to the mountains and a hurricane gets them too. So how could all of us, we all probably know someone who's suffering with something right now. It's very, very intense, very scary, and a lot of our world has not really developed a strong spiritual sense. So, where do you turn when nothing makes sense? So, drugs and alcohol are one way, but the best way would be to hang out with astrologers or people like you, Tracy, who help bring clarity, especially for times like this when it is absolutely frightening. And I use astrology as a navigational tool. That's what it was intended to be. It was never meant to be something that you read in magazines and every month you read about what Cancer is going to have or what Scorpio is going to have. That's just way too broad. If each of us were given a piece of music, then that piece of music never changes. But if you have an opera that you're supposed to be playing and your mother and father are jazz music, then you're going to have a tough time because you're wired so differently. So what we want to do is do the best we can with what we've been given. And that's what I try to do. And my big thing now is helping people with medical issues. I'm leaving on Wednesday for Colorado. Did I tell you about this? I'm going
I don't
to
think you did.
yeah, I was invited to be on a panel at a wellness conference. It's called Dragonfly Connect. People can join for free and do it virtually, but all these biohacking experts and people who have super duper unusual new ways to help heal the human body. I'm going to be learning a lot and can't wait to share it with the people that I'm teaching. And I'm also doing a astrology and medicine workshop when I get back in
Great.
mid-November. So if anyone's interested in that, and I try to let people know that astrology can see things that other people can't see.
Can I
So,
just clarify
sure.
a little bit for some of the listeners? Because, I mean, you and I have talked so much, but it sounds like what you're talking about, astrology is like a roadmap, a map of the roads in a destination give you the lay of the land. You get to choose how you're going to traverse that particular land or journey. Or like when you were saying a piece of music, it's like you get to kind of choose how you want to play it.
Yeah.
Some of the parts of music are more difficult to master, and others feel kind of easy and seamless. It sounds like what you're saying is that this is a way of looking at the landscape or the music of your life and
Yes.
learning to play it better for whatever yours is.
Right. And nobody else but an astrologer can see where you might get stuck. So, like in music, let's say you're a really complicated piece of music. By the way, complicated charts are the most interesting people because just like with music, if it's just a little silly childhood song, it's simple to learn, simple to sing, and simple to live. So there's nothing bad with that. We all need those little nursery rhyme songs at some stage in our life. But some of us have been given these incredibly intense, symphonies that we're trying to deal with. And if someone doesn't tell you how to fine tune your orchestra pit, you could get stuck. And that's what happens to people. They get stuck not knowing that there's a way to transcend it. You're actually supposed to outgrow your chart. You're not supposed to stay stuck trying to learn it, play it over and over again. So just like in music, when you get really good, you just sit down at a piano and you just go. You don't even need to read music. That's where we want to get to a level of mastery. But how could we possibly master our piece of music if nobody told us what it was? And sometimes there are things in there that you could be spending 20, 30 years in psychotherapy. Not that that's bad, but they can't see what an astrologer can see. So I do in 1 hour. Sometimes I find things out that are the key to unlocking everything. And unless you had come to me, you could have stayed stuck in that place.
And I want to just let people know, disclosure, like I've known you for a long time, but we haven't talked about deeply personal things, with our
Ever. Really.
histories or anything. And I had a reading with you, I'm going to say maybe a year and a half ago. And so did Jason separately. And honestly, what you came up with was so uncanny, like things that no one knew. And it just it is a very helpful tool to have in your more esoteric toolbox. I want to come back to something you said a few minutes ago too before we go forward with talking about the candidates is that, people do readings of countries based on the birth date of the country,
Right.
right?
Hmm.
July 4th, 1776, I
Yeah.
guess would be for the United States. You
Hmm.
were alluding to or referencing how difficult things have felt for some time. The division, the challenges on multiple fronts, right? On, health challenges, both national like COVID and, all of the anecdotes people are sharing about, people they know or they themselves going through weird personal stuff.
Mm.
challenges in relationships, confusion about how to sift through the disinformation and misinformation online and so forth. And you can't, I think you can feel the tension in the collective.
Oh, absolutely. That's why I said we got 333 million people who are freaking out right now. You can
Yeah,
absolutely feel it.
a
It
hundred
feels like,
percent.
especially if you're a sensitive person like you and I are, it can feel like an elephant sitting on your chest. There's like this heaviness and this. I'm desperately trying to keep myself grounded at all times. But every time I talk with a client, anytime I go out into the world, anything, you can feel, how could you not be nervous? Look at just, how about if we just consider the weather patterns?
Oh my goodness, yes.
How could you not be nervous about that for everyone? And there's so many things. It's really quite extraordinary. I think about my dad who fought in World War II and what his life was like then and how much our world has changed since that fight. This
100%. Climate issues, all these things,
is a lot, but Tracy,
wars,
thank God for people like us.
divisions,
You
divisions
in
everywhere.
particular,
Oh,
you
likewise.
we have a job to do right now, which is try to bring some peace and some understanding to the bigger picture of what's going on because it is weather. Okay. That's what are you going to do when it rains? You don't go out or it's thundering. You don't go out on the golf course with an umbrella. So there are things we can do right now to traverse this very complicated time. And it's very bumpy. There's a lot of
Yes.
turbulence and it's meant to be turbulent, by the way.
Okay.
That's the important thing to remember. What this is that we're going through. This is the weather. This is the way it's showing up. It has to show up some way, and it will calm down. It's going to take another year before we start feeling like we can breathe a little more easily. But it's happening, and it's been happening. It's been going on for several years now.
100%. I'm even just thinking, this is the last thing I'll say about this, even the division in friendships and families, both online relationships and real world relationships and so forth. I so given all this, let's talk about what you have tuned into for the country or for the various candidates, the influences in their charts and how you interpret that. And then whoever's listening will interpret it in their way. You're just looking at, again, you're looking at the map and telling us about the signposts. You're telling us about the terrain. People will come to their own kind of conclusions, but I'm very interested to hear your take.
Right. So let's start with Donald Trump. He is truly one of the luckiest people ever. There is so much in his chart with Jupiter, the planet of good fortune, which makes everything big. And when you have that kind of protection, it's like being born with a lot of bubble wrap around you. So he's used to, remember he said he could be on Fifth Avenue and shoot someone and it wouldn't matter. It's because of this Jupiter energy that he feels. It's like he could jump off a skyscraper, and because he's covered in so much bubble wrap, he would land and bounce and pop out of the bubble wrap and be fine. So when you,
Metaphorically.
yeah, metaphorically speaking, right? So when you live with that kind of energy in your being, then you have a great. He has also an aspect of the shaman. Shamans can be good or shamans can be bad, but they mesmerize people. And so he's got this bubble wrap Jupiter thing. When people see that, it's like magic. If someone falls off a skyscraper in a bubble suit and they end up living afterwards, you think that that's like a magical, really special chosen person because he's got so much Jupiter.
And there
And
are people who believe that.
yes, they are. And the reason, and I'm explaining
Yeah.
why they would believe that it would be you could point to these things that he, as a person, he seems to be invincible, that you would think we need a strong man. This is what he is. And maybe we don't like his personality, but I know this is the way a lot of my friends who like Trump are thinking that, hey, this if he can do that for himself, he can do it for us. So I'm understanding astrologically why he has captivated so many people. So the thing that's going on though with his on election day, before I get into election day, I just want to say that
Or generally.
he doesn't have any Earth in his chart, so that can be a real problem for him because he's not grounded, and he also is very low on fixed signs. So that means he literally bounces. He bounces, and it would drive people around him a little crazy because it's hard to contain him because he's like he's
One
got this.
thing to another.
Yes. And so staying sort of focused or playing by the rules, or let's say during the debate, he was supposed to stick to a certain thing. He can't do that because it's this bouncy thing that he's got. So bouncy feels like a happy, bouncy baby. So a lot of people want to be around bouncy things, right? He's just got all this lightness in a way that people perceive it as lightness. And they feel that he can make an impact because he's invincible and that they want an invincible person. So that's kind of the overview of just his personality, why he has a lot of followers. And on election day, he has a lot of really good aspects. So there's still something very over the top happening for him on that day. And here's the thing with Jupiter, the planet of good fortune. I always tell people, well, everyone thinks that Jupiter is so great. And it is, but there are times when it's not. Having dessert is great, okay? But if you have dessert every day, you're going to get sick. So the problem I see with him on election day is that it's almost like the Jupiter is getting blown up, which means that a lot of attention will be on him. I don't know if it's because he won or because he lost, but there's also in his chart this very strong aspect around women kind of coming against him. So if he loses, I think they'll find out that it was mostly because of women and the whole issue around reproductive rights. I can't stay silent about being a female and I can't lie to people that I think it's okay that in many parts in this country, a woman is going to have a baby or die herself. I mean, what happened to some of those women in Texas with, the lawsuits where they said, I need to have a doctor because I'm going to die if they don't get this out of me. I just don't understand why people can't see why most women would be upset about that. So that's something that and environmental climate issues. I'm just very strong about our planet and worrying about it. I've been doing environmental research work since I was in my early 20s. I don't know if you knew that about me. I used to work with Earthwatch
I
doing
vaguely remember that.
yeah, so I worked on global warming, measuring the erosion of the beaches in Trinidad and Tobago, long, long time ago, when no one was talking about the oceans rising, but we were witnessing it there because it was happening closer to the equator. Now it's moving up. And they were giving dire predictions back then about the oceans warming. And, that seems like a lifetime ago. But I'm very much about being connected to the natural cycles of our planet and being more attuned to nature because this is our home. We need to remember that we all share the same air, we share the same oceans. And I don't want to live in a planet where 50 years from now we can't even go to the beach and go in the ocean because it's so polluted. So anyway, back to Donald Trump. So on election day, there is some overdue energy of getting bigger, 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 and then all of a sudden, some unexpected thing could pop it. What I don't know what the popping means. I don't know if the popping is that he wins and he's president, or it pops and it's like that it couldn't get any bigger and then the balloon bursts. But it's something about this rising, puffing, puffing, puffing up energy in his chart. And then it's either going to explode in that he wins or it explodes and it's the opposite. And then it would mean he explodes and he's lost his giant bubble of protection around him. And then he would, because of having that protection his whole life, all of a sudden it's gone. Because if he doesn't become president, he's lost all his protection
Right.
going forward with all the lawsuits and everything else.
Let's say I want to ask you a question because I know you've mentioned to luck, and this could be for anybody who has similar aspects in their chart, but we're talking about Donald Trump. And yes, he has been like, I would say, Teflon Don, not the first person to have that moniker, but really has been able to say and do things I'm just going to be general and say other people could not get away with, and for good reason.
Mhm.
And there seem to have been limited consequences. Um, but does luck run out, or does luck look like it stays consistent in his chart? Same thing with the groundedness. Grounded, you can be ungrounded and be, fun and spontaneous, but you can also be unpredictable in a way that is not good. And so I'm
Yeah,
just kind of wondering how that looks now and going forward. Even if we take election day out of it.
right. Uh, he's not under the best aspects for his health. I don't personally think he's terribly healthy, because if he was, he would release his medical records. But I would think he would if he was super healthy. But I think that the thing with this Jupiter energy that it's just been so protective his whole life. I do think that around this time, starting now, we've also got a full moon on this Thursday. It's a super, super big one in that it's going to be 15% brighter and then 30% visually bigger. So when we have a full moon, think about, this is how astrology is based in science. A moon regulates every body of water on planet Earth. So the tides go up and down according to the cycles of the moon. We're like 80% water. So when it's a big moon, it's a harvest moon, big, big one of the biggest super moons of the year. When this happens, everything gets activated. So both Donald Trump and Kamala Harris were born during full moons. So there's this Donald Trump's got this big bubble wrap, big Jupiter protection all around him, getting bigger, bigger, bigger. And then we've got the super moon making it even bigger, bigger. And then on around election day, we've got this unexpected thing, possibly because of women, that could come in and just pop it. I don't know. Like I said, I don't know. I'm just reading the weather. I don't know whether the popping is he wins or popping that it all explodes. And it's like when you pop a bubble, a balloon that you blow up, when you pop it, all the little pieces of the balloon material go everywhere. And if that happens, I think that the people that follow him are going to be really, really angry that he didn't win, and they might actually even blame it on him. Like
Interesting.
he didn't do enough for them. You let us down because you did this, this, and this, and you should have done this, this, and this. And because you didn't do the right thing and play your cards right with whatever they're going to say, they may be the ones who are really angry
Interesting. I
at
hadn't
him,
thought about
angry at
that.
him.
I hadn't thought about that. And certainly we know that, public opinion is not static, it's variable. Donors are not static, their opinions vary, their support varies. I'm sure there's a number of things. I'm no political pundit and I won't try to be today, but um, again, I kind of wonder, there's some, when you see figures that are larger than life, just generally, or people who have been so fortunate beyond the norm, as a psychologist, I'm thinking there are also the danger of not having to kind of, I hate to say pay the piper, but to be accountable for the things you do and to be confident you don't have to. And tons of people are like that. He's just an extreme example. But there are certain things we just don't learn either, right? And that makes us less emotionally resilient. And that's just kind of a general statement. And, that's just kind of where understanding your chart and understanding psychology too, I think can be useful either for oneself or for looking at public figures and so forth. Anyway, that's a digression, but I want to get to Kamala Harris because again, a strong personality, a strong intellect, somebody who's very experienced in a completely different way, um, female, somebody who's just bringing a lot of other life experience and energy to this moment. And the moment seems like it's changing for the country too. I imagine the astrology of the nation is dovetailing with her ascendancy as well.
Right, because what's happening with the USA chart and what's going on right now, it's really the patriarchy against the suppressed female. So that's what's happening in the US chart. So with Kamala Harris being both Black, don't forget, Blacks were slaves for many years in our country. She's Black and she's also a woman. This is like symbolic of many, many centuries of division here
Oppression.
yeah, oppression. So it's all, and that's why this time, if we can look at it in a positive way, the reason this is all happening is because it has to happen. This is part of the design plan. This is the music we're supposed to be listening to right now. I want to go like this because I don't want to hear it. I don't like this music. It's not music I would ever choose to hear, but
You
I'm
mean the
listening to it.
division and strife, and
Yes, it's a very it's the kind of, when you hear a song,
it's
oh,
discordant.
the I'll tell you the song that I hate more than anything is that commercial 1-800 Cars for Kids. That is like,
That's commonly annoying to people.
well, that's what I feel like right now. If I have to hear one more political ad, if I have to hear one more, I mean, it's
It's
exhausting,
overwhelming.
and that song grates on you. So we're in a very grating time, and the only thing I know that corrects that type of music is to listen to a different type of music. So literally, symbolically, like yesterday I was painting and I was listening to old Broadway show tunes, and it put me into a completely altered state. And I felt like I was living in a different generation, and I wasn't ruminating over the music of 1-800 Cars for Kids, which is symbolic of what I feel we're all feeling like, if I have to hear that song one more time. So anyway, back to did I answer your question? I hope I did.
So yes, and but Kamala Harris, clearly, it sounds like there's like a karmic moment,
Yes.
and I'm very curious about the strengths or and potential things to watch out for in her chart.
Oh, well, okay. So let's talk about her natal chart. She has the complete chart of a very sane, smart world leader. She's actually designed to be a president. There are many people who I would say don't have what she's got. Her birthday is actually on October 20th. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
Yeah, she's turning 60.
Yeah, she looks
So
amazing.
she looks great, and she is a wood dragon in Chinese astrology, and wood dragons are some of the strongest people, and we're also in a wood dragon year. So in that sense, this is a good year for her. It's called a golden birthday for people who believe in Chinese astrology. I'm not an expert in that at all. So if you take her vehicle, so let's use metaphor to describe what it's like to be her. She's driving the most sturdy, dependable car to get you through any kind of storm. Okay. So she's been given all the right tires, the right machinery to do what needs to be done to be a president. However, on election day, and it's happening right now, it's been happening for the last couple of months, she is getting tested beyond belief. These are very, very difficult aspects for her going on right now. For example, Pluto, which is the planet of death and rebirth and transformation, it's squaring, and a square is like getting it hitting the side of your stomach, like, ugh, and it's squaring her sun. And so it can feel as if her light is being dimmed, and it's possible that she wants to say and do more, but people are telling her not to. I don't know what's going on, but there's a lot of stuff that's happening to her right now that makes me feel she's feeling muted. And even though she's doing all these things, there's something that's very foggy for her about how she's going to get to this finish line. And then meanwhile, on the other side, we got Donald Trump driving this gigantic, those big trucks that are all oversized with the giant wheels that we see
Yes.
them a lot in Florida. So that's what he's driving. And she's just in a regular, dependable vehicle, but everything with him is looks like he could take his monster truck and go over another car if he had to, and he probably could. So she's grappling with a lot of really big lessons right now, and election day is tough for her. It's not super easy, but it hasn't been easy for her all these months leading up to it. And I think that the difference between her day on election day and his day on election day is that hers is very serious, contained, thought out. It's like a more grounded. That's a good word to use. And I think we as humans, just like with our own natal chart, I said, we're given a piece of music. I could tell you, look, your piece of music, the trumpets are too loud and you got to do more with the flutes. Like we got to recalibrate. Okay. She is under unbelievably intense aspects of being constantly growing, recalibrating. She's in a master growth cycle of trying to get herself to the place where she can do all the things she needs to do. And you don't get strong unless you're tested. Okay. So she's getting tested and she's getting strong and she's got her hands on the steering wheel and it's a bumpy ride. Donald Trump has basically been steering his oversized monster truck with one hand and pretty relaxed about it all. And the two of them, these two different vehicles will meet up and it's up to us as the people who get to vote. We're in charge. We have free will. And I think I'm 100% sure from looking at the charts that it's going to be women. If Kamala wins, it will be because of women and people like Taylor Swift and others who have just been very vocal. So it's hard to tell. I will say this, that I don't think, Tracy, we're going to have an answer right away. I think that it's going to be drawn out, and if she wins, I 100% sure that Trump's going to say it was stolen, and there's going to be a lot of legal battles and recounting ballots. And even if she wins by a landslide, I still think that's going to happen. So it could be that I even looked into Inauguration Day. One reason why I knew Biden would win last time was because on Inauguration Day, I saw that he was moving into a new house. So I thought, wow, okay, that was very, very clear.
When you say moving into a new house,
Meaning he was leaving his home and going into the White House.
oh, the last one.
Last one, yeah,
Okay,
for the last election. That's why I predicted that he would beat Trump.
right.
Because he was I saw it when we got to Inauguration Day, he was moving. I'm trying to figure out what's going to happen around Inauguration Day by looking at the charts of these two individuals. And I don't know. I hope it's not the case, but it's possible. We still don't know who's president by January.
It's so interesting that you're saying that because, I've been following other intuitives, some of them for years. And I love that some of them post their predictions again for years out. And you can go back and look way ahead of time and then say, okay, did this come to pass or not? Jean Mayel, who's actually also been on Coast to Coast, has done that with her intuitive students. And it's uncanny, a lot of the things that they forecasted, but among them that there may very well be legal battles and things drawing this out. And that would be really unfortunate for the country,
Yes.
And my thing without saying too much is just, people have to put the greater good, the well-being of the greater good first, and not everybody feels that way. And this to me wouldn't be for the best of the country if this were dragged out. And if there's just a lot of, it's not like you said, the music right now to me is discordant. It's like too many minor notes or it's not harmonious.
It's very horrible. And like just looking at the weather pattern for this week, I want to go like this too. Like looking at what's happening even this week, last week with the hurricanes, that was
oh my God,
intense.
it's so terrifying.
It's like this almost every week until we get to the middle of November. It will definitely get better because Pluto, the planet that's bringing about this massive shift, it's a 20-year cycle ending on November 17th. After that, we should start feeling a lot better, because then it will be moving into Aquarius. It's been in
Okay, good.
Capricorn, which is the patriarchy, the old. Aquarius is the new. So Pluto's hanging on for dear life for the last bit of this patriarchal Capricorn era. And on November 17th, it shifts into Aquarius, which makes me feel that we have to do things differently. And having an older 80-year-old white man in the White House is not a very Aquarian thing. Having a Black woman who's going to be president would be a very Aquarian thing, which goes with the feeling tone of what Pluto does. But Pluto makes us go through hell to get to the other side. And it's never pleasant. Like I said, you can feel like your eyeballs are melting, and we just have to.
Let's hope not.
Yeah, it's not a good image.
Nobody wants that.
1-800-CARS for kids.
Oh my
Those
God.
two together are enough to make you realize you're not, if you feel insane right now, if you feel
I
uncomfortable.
think everybody feels it.
Right now, as we're talking, they're working on my street out front, and I'm hearing blasting, and it's like a dental drill, only times 10. I don't know if you can hear it, but
I can't, thankfully. Your microphone's very good.
well, it's just like, okay, universe, you're just telling me, you mean more like that? Yeah. So what the hell are you going to do when it's raining and thundering and lightning? What are you going to do about it? Sit and complain?
Or get your umbrella and your raincoat.
Or stay inside.
Prepare.
Yeah.
We have options. I want to finish on a high note, just because I know your schedule is super tight, but I want to just say, as an Aquarian person, I know that's not the most predominant note in the song of my journey, but innovation, idealism, progress, like change for the better, and being open to this, being open to a creative new approach. I'm no astrologer, as you can tell, but that's kind of what I think of, and tapping into the collective wisdom. And I think we can do better than we've all been doing, and come together and, forge a better path forward. That is my hope for this. And when you talk about this shift, that's what I imagine, is that we figure this stuff out, get out of our own way as a society, and start to move forward together. I hope. That's what I'm putting out there.
And I believe we can, because I think at the end of the day, people all want the same things. They want to be prosperous and feel safe. They want to feel safe. And if they don't feel safe.
And understood.
Yes, be understood and to feel safe. And that's something that will take time, and it will take spiritual leaders and people like you to help people navigate the hostility that's out there.
So thank you, Leslie. First of all, thank you so much for your time and your insights, as always. I always love connecting with you. And I will be in touch to get my own little astrology update. I want to make sure to let people know how to find out more about you, your books, your workshops, your astrology classes, your free Facebook astrology group, and so much more. Where should people go? And I'll put it in the show notes as well.
Okay. So you can go to my website, obviously. It's just lesliemcguirk.com. But I will send you something, Tracy, that you can put in the notes, and then they can just click on it, a link, and it has everything, every offering I'm doing. And I also have a free astrology club. It's the 15th of every month, so it's actually tomorrow. And that's a really great place for people to come and just hear me interact with a whole bunch of people and get your questions answered. They can't be personal questions, but if you have questions about astrology or anything, it's a free way to understand more about how I work and what I do with people. And then I absolutely love teaching astrology. That's my big passion right now. So anyone who's interested in learning astrology and always thought it was way too hard, it's because you didn't have the right teacher. So
even Jay loved it. He loved the course he took with you way back when.
It was people love it because they actually feel like they get it. And
we become better musicians by understanding our song.
And I want everyone to know that this does not have to be only knowledge for a few people who have spent, 50 years studying it. There's enough that I can teach you that you can use on a daily basis to understand the wiring, the pieces of music that your children are given, your boss. Once you understand the way people are, you can have more peace in your life. So I teach a beginner
100%.
level class that lasts 8 hours, and I can get people up and running to where I was after 20 years of studying on my own.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so it's fun. And I do it in a very creative way. I'm like the
You do.
Montessori school of astrology.
Well, Leslie, thank you so
Oh,
much
you're welcome.
as always. And everyone, if you enjoyed the show, and I know you did, please remember to like, share, follow, leave me a comment. Let me know what you think. Check out Leslie's information that I'll have in the show notes. And of course, as always, until next time, be well.